think phonology is really underrated in cognitive modeling, because if we think of it, it is the speech and signs are the only continuous properties, physical properties of language that we can measure, and they have a continuous component. And humans discretize that continuous space, right, speech, into what we have been calling for hundreds of years phonemes, mental units, discretized units, right, symbols, in other words. And deep neural networks in many tasks need to do the same, right? If you have a picture or a class as a convolutional classifier, it needs to take some continuous space and discretize it. And so we understand how people do that quite well. And I'm claiming that by modeling phonology, not only we can learn something about, with the deep neural network, not only we can learn something about phonology, we can learn also something about how deep neural networks themselves learn internal representations. And there's several advantages of taking speech for that task. People have been comparing artificial neural nets with brains or with performance on the visual tasks. But visual tasks are great for that, but they have some disadvantages compared to speech, actually. I think we understand speech acquisition relatively well, especially maybe compared to visual acquisition, learning of visual world. But crucially, in speech, we have very readily available production data, which is not necessarily the case in the visual domain, right? So, we generate speech constantly. Human learners babble, and they have very, defined stages of acquisition. And we have really easy access to that production data. And in the visual domain, that's not necessarily always the case, right? We can imagine things in our head, but in order to access that, I'm going to have to give you a pen and paper, and you're going to have to draw something. And there's not as direct production data, not as easily available as in speech. And production data will be important because I'm modeling language with generative models. So a lot of the focus will be on the production itself.